Captain stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn and watched the dying star through the main window. It was beautiful in a terrible way. The star was eating itself from the inside, growing brighter and brighter. In a few years, it would explode. When that happened, every planet in this system would burn to ash. "How many live here?" asked quietly. Doctor looked up from her data pad. Her face was sad. 3 billion. They have been trying to evacuate for 10 years, but they don't have enough ships. They've only moved 200 million so far. Closed his eyes. 3 billion lives. It was hard to imagine such a huge number. Each one was a person with a family, with dreams, with a life they wanted to live. "What do they need?" he asked. "Everything," said. "Ships, fuel, food, a new world to live on. They need time, Captain, and time is the one thing they don't have." Ambassador walked onto the bridge. She was older than, with white hair and kind eyes. She had been talking with the leaders for 3 days straight. She looked tired. "They're scared," said softly. "They know most of their people will die. They're trying to save who they can, but it's not enough. Their leaders are trying to stay calm, but I can see it in their eyes. They're saying goodbye to their world." Looked at the star again. Humanity had only been traveling in space for 50 years. They were still new to all of this. The galaxy was full of species that had been flying between stars for thousands of years. Many of them were richer than humans, more advanced, more powerful. But none of them were helping the... "Why hasn't anyone else helped them?" asked. Sighed. "I asked the same question. The Galactic Council said it would be too expensive. Other species said they should have been more careful, that they should have left their system earlier. One ambassador told me that saving them wasn't cost-effective." Felt anger rising in his chest. Cost-effective. As if 3 billion lives could be measured in money. "Call Earth," said. "Tell them we need the fleet, all of it." His eyes went wide. "Captain, that's 200 ships. That's half of humanity's space fleet." "I know," said. "Call them anyway." The message took 6 hours to reach Earth and 6 hours for the answer to come back. Spent those 12 hours meeting with the leaders. They were tall beings, thin and graceful, with skin that looked like purple silk. Their eyes were huge and dark. When they looked at, he could see their fear. The leader of the was named. He stood in the meeting room of the eternal dawn and tried to keep his voice steady. "Captain," said, "we are grateful for your visit. We know humanity is still young in space. We do not expect you to risk your resources for us. You barely know us." "That's not how we see it," said. "Your people in trouble, that's all we need to know." His huge eyes filled with tears. Other species have said such things before, but when they learn the cost, they always leave. It is too expensive to save us. We understand this. Leaned forward. "On Earth we have a saying, today you, tomorrow me. It means that today you need help. Tomorrow it might be us who need help. We help you today because someday someone might need to help us." "A beautiful saying," said sadly. "But words cannot move 3 billion people across the stars." The communication screen on the wall lit up. A message from Earth appeared. Read it and smiled. "You're right," said. "Words can't move 3 billion people, but ships can. Earth is sending our fleet, 212 ships. They'll be here in 3 weeks." Stared at 200 ships, "But that's half of everything you have." "Yes," said simply. "You would risk so much for us. You don't even know if we can pay you back." Stood up and walked over to. She put her hand on his arm gently. "We're not asking for payment. This is a gift." His legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard in his chair. "A gift? Captain, do you understand what you're saying? Moving 3 billion people will take years. It will cost more resources than most small nations have. You'll need to give us food, water, medicine, fuel, shelter. And you want nothing in return." "We want you to live," said. "That's enough." For a long moment couldn't speak. Then he started to cry, not sad tears, but tears of relief and hope and wonder. "No one has ever," he whispered. "In all the galaxy I have never heard of such kindness." The human fleet arrived 3 weeks later. 212 ships filled the sky above the people looked up and saw hope for the first time in years. Doctor and her team got to work immediately. They shared human technology freely, terraforming tools that could make dead planets bloom with life, medical knowledge that helped children stay healthy during the long journey, ships' designs that could build themselves. "Why are you giving us all of this?" a scientist asked. "This knowledge took you decades to develop. Don't you want to keep it secret?" Smiled. "Knowledge isn't useful if it's secret. Knowledge is meant to be shared. Besides, what good is having the answer if people are dying because they don't know it?" The evacuation took 4 years. Every human ship worked day and night. They found a perfect world for in a nearby system. It had water, good air, and a stable sun. The humans helped build cities there. They gave enough food and supplies for 50 years. On the last day, when the final ship left their dying, met with one last time. Captain said, "My people will never forget this. We were ready to die, you gave us life. How can we ever repay such a debt?" Shook his head. "There's no debt, but if you want to honor what we did, then do it for someone else someday. When you meet someone who needs help, remember this day. Remember that someone helped you when they didn't have to." Placed his hand over his heart in a gesture of deep respect. "We will remember, Captain. We will tell our children and they will tell theirs. Humanity saved us. Humanity asked for nothing. We will never forget." As the eternal dawn left the system, other alien species watched from afar. They had heard what humanity did. They watched with curiosity and confusion. Most species in the galaxy didn't give gifts like this. Most species asked for something in return. Humanity was different. And the galaxy was starting to notice. 80 years had passed since humanity saved In that time, the humans had become known across the galaxy by a special name, the Gardeners. Engineer stood inside the construction bay and looked at his creation. It was massive, bigger than a city. The station floated in space like a silver wheel, spinning slowly. Inside there was room for 5 million people. It had farms, hospitals, schools, and parks, everything needed for life. "How many have we built now?" asked his assistant, a young human woman named. "This is number 207, said proudly, "and we're giving it away just like all the others." Shook her head in wonder. "My grandfather told me stories about the old days. Before we went to space, humans fought wars over land and resources. Now we build cities and give them to strangers." "We learned something important," said. "The galaxy is big, really big. There's enough room and enough resources for everyone. The only thing that was ever scarce was kindness." The stations that designed were called sanctuary stations. They were gifts to species that needed them. Refugees from wars, survivors of dead worlds, people running from disasters. Humanity built these massive homes in space and asked for nothing in return. Commander walked through the corridors of her flagship, the Garden's Shield. She commanded the human aid fleet, 50 ships that traveled the galaxy looking for people who needed help. Her crew came from 20 different species. Humans worked side by side with aliens, all of them united by one goal, to help others. "Commander," said her first officer, unnamed, "we've received a distress signal from the Vega system. It's from a species called They say they're being held as slaves." His face went hard. "Slaves by who?" "The Corporate League," said quietly. "They're one of the most powerful economic groups in the galaxy." Had heard of They were a species that valued profit above everything else. They owned mining operations, trade routes, and entire planets. They were rich and powerful. They were also cruel. "Set course for Vega," said. "Maximum speed." The Garden's Shield arrived at the Vega system 3 days later. What saw there made her blood boil. There were small beings, barely 4 feet tall, with soft gray fur and large, gentle eyes. There were 200,000 of them working in the mining operations. They lived in cages. They worked 18 hours a day. Many were injured. Children were forced to work alongside their parents. Stood on the bridge and watched through the cameras. Beside her was crying. "This is wrong," whispered. "This is so wrong." "Yes," said, "it is." She opened a communication channel to the station. A overseer appeared on screen. He was fat and wore expensive clothes. He looked annoyed. "What do you want, human?" they asked. "This is private property. You have no authority here." "I'm commander of the human aid fleet," she said calmly. "I'm here to free the people. Release them immediately." The laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Free them. These creatures owe us money. They signed contracts. They work until their debt is paid. This is legal under Galactic Council law." "Legal doesn't mean right," said. "Go away, human. Your kind may be popular with the weak species, but the corporate league has real power. Leave now, or there will be consequences." Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I'm going to give you 1 hour to release every on this station. If you don't, I will take them by force." The overseer's face turned purple with rage. "You wouldn't dare. The Galactic Council will." "Cut the communication." 58 minutes later, when they refused to release gave the order. Human soldiers boarded the station. The guards tried to fight back, but they were no match for the humans. Within 2 hours, every was free. But didn't stop there. "Destroy the mining equipment," she ordered. "All of it. I don't want this place operational ever again." Her crew looked at her in surprise. "Commander," said carefully, "that's worth billions. If we destroy it, they will be furious." "Good," said. "They should be afraid to do this again." The human ships destroyed every piece of mining equipment in the system. They burned the slave cages. They deleted all the fake debt records. Then they arrested every overseer and sent them back to the Galactic Council for trial. The people were free. Humanity gave them one of sanctuary stations. It became their new home. News of what happened spread quickly across the galaxy. The corporate league was furious. They demanded that humanity pay for the destroyed equipment. They called the humans criminals and thieves. The Galactic Council held a meeting. It was held in a massive station where representatives from hundreds of species gathered. The delegate stood and spoke with anger in his voice. "The humans destroyed private property worth 7 billion credits," he shouted. "They stole our workers. They broke galactic law. They must be punished." Ambassador stood up slowly. She was very old now, but her voice was still strong. "They call it destroyed property," said. "We call it freed people. There's a difference." "Those signed contracts," the delegate argued. "Contracts signed under threat of death," replied. "Contracts that forced children to work in mines. Contracts that treated living beings as objects. We don't recognize such contracts." "The law says." "Then the law is wrong," said firmly, "and we will break wrong laws every single time." Many species in the council chamber started talking at once. Some agreed with They said humanity had no right to destroy property, even to free slaves. They said humans were too emotional, too quick to act. But other species stood with humanity. The delegate stood and spoke with pride. 80 years ago, humanity saved my people when no one else would," the daughter said. She had taken her father's place after he died. "They asked for nothing. They gave everything. Now they've freed them from slavery. These are not the actions of criminals. These are the actions of heroes." One by one, other species stood. Species that humanity had helped over the years. Species that lived in sanctuary stations. Species that owed their lives to human kindness. "We stand with humanity," they said. The Galactic Council couldn't punish humanity. Too many species supported them. The delegate left the meeting in rage. He pointed at Ambassador as he walked out. "You will regret this," he said. Do not forget insults. We do not forgive. One day you will learn that kindness is just weakness with a smile." Watched him go and felt a small shiver of worry, but she pushed it away. Humanity was doing the right thing. That's what mattered. Back on the garden shield, Commander met with the freed. Their leader, a small elderly named Pix, held hand with both of his tiny paws. "Thank you," Pix said, his large eyes shining with tears. "Thank you for seeing us as people, not property." "That's all we've ever seen," said gently. "You're people, you deserve to be free." As the garden's shield left the Vega system, looked at the stars and felt proud. Humanity was making the galaxy better, one act of kindness at a time. She didn't know that they were already planning their revenge. The colony world of New Haven was beautiful. Governor stood on his balcony and watched the sunrise. The sky turned orange and pink, and the two moons were still visible in the morning light. Below him, the city was waking up. New Haven was special. It was home to 2 million humans and 800,000 aliens from 12 different species. Humans lived next door to families. Children played with human children in the parks. In the markets, you could hear 20 different languages. Everyone was welcome here. Smiled as he watched a group of children walking to school. His own daughter was among them. She was holding hands with her best friend, a small girl named Tix. They were laughing about something. "It's going to be a good day," said to himself. He had no idea how wrong he was. Doctor was very old now. She was 93 years old, but she still worked every day. She couldn't move as fast as she used to, but her mind was still sharp. She spent her mornings teaching at the university, sharing everything she knew with the next generation. Today, she was teaching a class of mixed-species students. They were learning about terraforming technology. A young student raised his hand. "Doctor, why did humans share this knowledge for free? Didn't Earth want to keep it secret?" Smiled. "Knowledge that stays secret is useless. Knowledge is meant to grow and spread like seeds in a garden. The more people who have it, the more good it can do." At the back of the city in the cargo port, something terrible was happening. Ships were landing. They looked like normal cargo ships, but they carried weapons and soldiers. The ships had fake identification codes. No one knew they were dangerous. Until it was too late. The attack began at noon. Explosions ripped through the city. The hospital was hit first, then the schools, then the residential areas where families lived. The attackers weren't trying to hit military targets. They were trying to kill as many civilians as possible. Governor was in a meeting when the first explosion shook the building. He ran to the window and saw smoke rising from the children's hospital. His blood turned to ice. He whispered, "She's at school. The school is right next to the hospital." He ran from the building, not caring about his own safety. He had to find his daughter. Behind him, his security team was shouting, trying to follow him, but was already gone, running through streets filled with smoke and screaming. The school had been hit. Part of the building had collapsed. Teachers were pulling children from the rubble, searched frantically through the chaos, calling his daughter's name. He found her backpack. It was covered in dust. Next to it was a small shoe that belonged to Tix's friend, but he didn't find the girls. "No," said, "no, no, no." A teacher, bleeding from a cut on her head, grabbed his arm. "Governor, the children were on a field trip. They went to the museum. They might be safe." Ran to the museum. But when he got there, his heart broke. The museum had been hit too. It had been a direct strike. The entire building was destroyed. There were no survivors. Doctor had been at the university when the attack started. She immediately went to help. Even though she was old, she worked alongside the doctors and nurses, helping the wounded. There were so many injured people, humans and others, all of them bleeding, crying, scared. A group of children were trapped in a burning building, saw them through the smoke. Without thinking, she ran inside. The building was about to collapse, but she didn't care. She helped lead the children out, one by one. She got all of them to safety. But when she went back for one last check, the ceiling fell, didn't make it out. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it finally ended, 300,000 people were dead. 80,000 of them were children, humans, and others. The attackers had not cared who they killed. The ships that attacked tried to escape, but human defense forces destroyed most of them. They captured one ship intact. Inside, they found proof. The attackers were mercenaries, but they had been hired by someone. The evidence pointed to the corporate league. Governor sat in the ruins of the museum. His clothes were covered in dust and blood. His hands were shaking. His daughter was gone. Her friend was gone. Doctor, the woman who had saved billions of people, was gone. 300,000 people were gone. A soldier approached carefully. "Governor, we need to get you to safety. There might be more attacks." "Let them come," said in a hollow voice. "Let them all come." The news of the attack spread across the galaxy in hours. Every species that humanity had helped felt the pain. The declared 7 days of mourning. The people wept openly. Even species that barely knew humanity felt the horror of what had happened. Humanity demanded justice. They brought the evidence to the Galactic Council. They showed that they had hired the attackers. They demanded that the leadership be arrested and punished. The Galactic Council met for 3 days. In the end, they issued a statement. It said they were deeply concerned about the attack. It said they offered thoughts and prayers to the victims. It said they would investigate the matter. But they did nothing. They had too much money, too much power, too much influence. The Galactic Council was afraid to touch them. Instead, they suggested that maybe the attack had been done by rogue elements and that the leadership couldn't be blamed. Ambassador stood before the council. She was so old now that she needed help walking, but when she spoke, her voice cut through the chamber like a knife. "You offer us thoughts and prayers," she said, "but thoughts and prayers don't bring back the dead. 300,000 people are gone. 80,000 children will never grow up. And you tell us to accept an investigation that will lead nowhere." "Ambassador," the council speaker said carefully, "we understand your pain, but we must be careful. They are powerful if we act rashly." "Rashly?" His voice rose. "It's been 3 weeks. How much time do you need? We gave you evidence, we gave you witnesses, we gave you everything, but you're too afraid to act." "We must think of the greater good," another council member said. "Starting a conflict with the could destabilize the entire economy." Looked around the chamber. She saw fear in the eyes of the council members. They were afraid to do what was right. "I see," said quietly, "you won't help us." "We are helping," the council speaker said. "We're investigating." "You're doing nothing," said. "You're hiding behind words and procedures. You're letting murderers walk free because you're afraid." She turned and walked out of the chamber. The other human delegates followed her. As she left, felt something break inside her. For 80 years she had believed in diplomacy. She had believed in working together. She had believed in peace. But peace without justice was just another word for surrender. Back on Earth in the military headquarters, an old man sat in a chair and read the reports from New Haven. His name was. He was 80 years old now, retired from the military for 20 years. His hair was white. His hands were wrinkled, but his eyes were still sharp. He read about the attack. He read about the children. He read about Doctor, his old friend, dying while saving others. He read about the Galactic Council's refusal to act. Closed the report and sat in silence for a long time. His assistant knocked on the door. "Admiral, there's a message from the Earth government. They want to know if you'll come out of retirement. They want you to command the response." Stood up slowly. His bones ached, his body was old, but his mind was clear. "Tell them yes," he said. "Sir, what should I tell the press? They're asking what humanity will do." Walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the thought they had won. They thought they had taught humanity a lesson about consequences. They thought humanity would be afraid. They were wrong. "Tell the press that class is in session," said quietly. They wanted to teach us about consequences. Now we're going to teach them. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity mobilized for war. For 80 years, everyone had seen humans as peaceful. They were the gardeners, the helpers, the ones who gave gifts and asked for nothing. People had almost forgotten that humans could be dangerous. They were about to remember. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury, humanity's largest warship. Around him, his officers worked quickly and quietly. These were not the same ships humanity used for aid missions. These were war machines that had been kept hidden, waiting for the day they would be needed. That day had come. Commander, now Admiral, stood beside. She looked different. Her kind face had become hard. The woman who had spent years saving people was now ready to destroy. "The fleet is ready," Admiral said. 200 combat ships, fully armed and waiting for your command. "And the engineering teams?" asked. "Engineer has finished the weapons. They work exactly as designed. When activated, they will collapse a star's fusion process. The star will die within hours." Nodded slowly. The same brilliant minds that had built sanctuary stations for refugees had now built weapons that could kill stars. Humanity had always had the capacity for both creation and destruction. They had simply chosen to create. Until now. Governor stood on the bridge too. He had joined the military campaign. He couldn't bring back his daughter, but he could make sure this never happened to another father, another child. "Sir," a young officer said nervously, "we're receiving a message from the corporate league. They say if we attack them, they'll sue us in the Galactic Council. They say we'll be breaking interstellar law." Smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Reply to them. Tell them we don't care about their laws. We care about justice." The human fleet moved out. They didn't attack randomly. They didn't strike in anger. Instead, they moved with terrifying precision. Humanity had been planning this for 3 months, studying every station, every ship, every asset. They knew exactly where to strike. The corporate league had 47 major stations spread across the galaxy. They were mining stations, trade hubs, and corporate headquarters. Each one was worth billions. Each one was protected by security forces. Humanity hit all 47 at the same time. The attacks were perfectly coordinated. Human ships appeared at each station simultaneously. They sent the same message to each one. "You have 1 hour to evacuate all civilians. After that, we will destroy this station. If you fight back, we will destroy it immediately." At most stations, they evacuated. They didn't want to fight. At 7 stations, the security forces tried to resist. Those stations were destroyed within minutes. Every person inside had been warned. Every person who chose to stay made their choice. Humanity felt no joy in this, but they felt no mercy either. Engineer watched from the command ship as his sanctuary stations were used as evacuation centers. It was strange. He had built these stations to save lives. Now they were being used to house evacuees while their own stations burned. "It's not right," said quietly, "using tools of creation for war." "We're not using them for war," Admiral said. "We're using them to save lives. Even now, even angry, we're still trying to save people, even our enemies." Within 1 week, the corporate league had lost 90% of their physical assets. Their stations were gone. Their ships were captured or destroyed. Humanity froze every bank account they could find. They seized every asset. But humanity wasn't done. The leadership sent a message to the Galactic Council begging for help. They called humanity monsters. They said humans were violent and dangerous. They asked the Council to intervene. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. The same council that had offered thoughts and prayers after New Haven. The same council that had been too afraid to act. Now they wanted humanity to stop. Ambassador addressed the council one final time. She was very weak now. The stress of the past months had taken its toll, but she stood before them, supported by two aides. "You asked us to stop," said. "Where were you when our children were burning? Where were you when 300,000 innocent people died? You offered us thoughts and prayers. You told us to wait for investigations that would never come. You let the killers walk free because you were afraid of their money." "Ambassador," the council speaker said, "we understand your anger, but this violence must stop. You're destroying a major economic power." "We're destroying murderers," said coldly. "And now you care. Now you act, not when children were dying, not when hospitals were burning, but now when money is being lost, suddenly you find your courage." A delegate stood up, his voice shaking with rage. "You humans think you're heroes. You think you're righteous, but you're just killers like the rest of us. You're worse because you pretend to be good." Turned to look at him. Her old eyes were filled with cold fire. "We are not like you. We gave you gardens, we built sanctuaries, we saved billions, we asked for nothing. And you murdered our children to teach us a lesson about power. Now we're teaching you one back." She turned back to the council. "We are not stopping. We will dismantle the corporate league completely. We will arrest every person involved in the New Haven attack. We will make sure this never happens again. And if any of you try to stop us, you'll learn why you should have helped us when we asked nicely." The council chamber was silent. For the first time in galactic history, the species that everyone had seen as kind and gentle had shown their teeth. And those teeth were terrifying. The leadership made one last desperate move. They refused to surrender. They said they would rather fight to the end than submit to humanity. Humanity granted their wish. Admiral stood on the bridge and looked at the star map. 3 controlled star systems were marked in red. These systems were uninhabited. No colonies, no stations, no people, just stars and empty planets. "Are the weapons ready?" asked. "Yes, sir," an officer replied. "But Admiral, these are stars. Once we do this, there's no taking it back." "I know," said. He thought about Doctor who had died saving children. He thought about Governor's daughter who would never grow up. He thought about 80,000 children who had no chance to live their lives. "Sir," Governor said quietly, "Doctor wouldn't have wanted this." "I know," said again. "Was a better person than me. She would have wanted mercy. She would have wanted forgiveness." He paused. "But is dead. Those children are dead, and the people who killed them think they can hide behind money and power." He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire the weapons." 3 weapons launched. Each one traveled to a different star system. When they reached the stars, they activated. The stars began to collapse. The fusion that had burned for billions of years started to fail. Within 6 hours, 3 stars died. The galaxy watched in horror. Humanity had killed stars. They had shown a level of power that terrified everyone. If they could kill stars, what else could they do? A message went out from Admiral to the leadership. It was short and simple. "We gave you gardens, you gave us graves. You wanted to teach us about consequences. Now you understand. Surrender or watch more stars die." They held out for 48 more hours. But the fear had broken them. When humanity sent a 4th weapon toward a star that did have people living around it, they finally surrendered. They surrendered completely, unconditionally. They gave up everything. The war had lasted 4 months. Admiral ordered the 4th weapon to be deactivated. The star was saved. Humanity had never wanted to kill innocent people. They just needed to believe they would. The leadership was arrested. Every person involved in the New Haven attack was captured. They were put on trial in front of the whole galaxy. The evidence was clear. They were found guilty. But humanity didn't execute them. Instead, they sentenced them to life in prison. They would spend the rest of their lives thinking about what they had done. The corporate league was dissolved. Their assets were distributed to the people they had enslaved and exploited. The who had been freed years earlier became the administrators of the former territories. Admiral stood on New Haven, watching as the city was rebuilt. Everywhere she looked, she saw construction. New buildings rising where old ones had fallen, gardens being planted in memorial squares. "We won," she said to herself, "but it doesn't feel like winning." Governor stood beside her. "No," he agreed. "Winning would be if none of this had happened. Winning would be if the children were still alive." "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked. Was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "I think we did the necessary thing. Maybe that's not the same as the right thing, but it was necessary." 50 years had passed since the war. The galaxy had changed. The old ways of doing things were gone. The time when powerful species could hurt weaker ones without consequences was over. Humanity had made sure of that. Ambassador was long dead now. She had lived just long enough to see the leadership sentenced, then she passed away peacefully in her sleep. The entire galaxy mourned her. Even former enemies respected what she had accomplished. A new generation had grown up. Young humans who had never known the time before contact. Young aliens who had never known a galaxy without human influence. On New Haven, the city had been completely rebuilt. It was more beautiful than before. But in the center of the city stood a massive structure that everyone simply called the museum. It was built on the exact spot where the old museum had been destroyed. The same museum where Governor's daughter and 80,000 other children had died. Today was the 50th anniversary of the attack. Representatives from over 200 species had come to New Haven for the memorial ceremony. Ships filled the sky. The city was crowded with visitors from across the galaxy. Among them was an old woman who had been just a girl when the attack happened. Her name was, and she had survived because she had been sick that day and stayed home from the school field trip. All her classmates had died. Now she was a teacher, and she brought her own students to the museum every year to teach them about what happened and why it must never happen again. Inside the museum, the exhibits were split into two main sections. The first section was called the Garden Gallery. It showed humanity's history of helping others. There were hollows of the evacuation, models of the sanctuary stations, stories of the species that humanity had saved, pictures of Doctor and all the other humans who had dedicated their lives to helping others. In the center of this gallery stood a statue of Doctor. She was shown helping a child, her face kind and gentle. The inscription read, "She saved billions and asked for nothing. She died saving children who weren't even her own species. This is who we choose to be." The second section was called the Reaper Gallery. It was darker, quieter. It showed the weapons humanity had built, models of the warships, images of the destroyed stations, and in the very center, contained behind thick glass, was one of the weapons. It was small, surprisingly, just a cylinder about the size of a person, but everyone who looked at it knew what it could do. This small device could kill a star. The inscription beneath it read, "We built this because we had to. We used it because they forced us to. We keep it here so we never forget the cost of ignoring evil. 3 stars died. 300,000 people died. Never again." The ceremony began in the Memorial Plaza outside the museum. Over 50,000 people had gathered. More watched from across the galaxy on live broadcasts. An old man walked slowly to the podium. He moved carefully with the help of a cane. His name was, he had been governor during the attack. After the war, he had become one of humanity's greatest advocates for peace, but he had never forgotten what happened to his daughter. "Thank you all for coming," said, his voice amplified across the plaza. 50 years ago, this city was attacked. 300,000 people died in 6 hours. They died because some beings in the galaxy thought that money was more important than life. They thought power made them untouchable. He paused, looking across the crowd. He saw humans and aliens standing together. They were wrong. Today we remember not just the attack, but everything that came after. We remember that humanity chose violence only after every peaceful option failed. We remember that even in war, we tried to minimize loss of life. We remember that after we won, we didn't take revenge. We rebuilt. We reformed. We created new laws to protect the weak. A young woman stepped forward to speak next. Her name was. She had been born after the war, raised in the new society that had emerged from the ruins of the corporate league. "I want to speak for my people," said nervously. "The of today are not the of 50 years ago. We were taught to value profit above life. We were taught that power made us superior. We were wrong, terribly, horribly wrong." Her voice broke slightly. "My grandfather was one of the executives who approved the attack on New Haven. He spent the rest of his life in prison. Before he died, he wrote letters to the families of the victims. He never expected forgiveness. He just wanted them to know that he understood what he had done, that he was sorry." She looked at Governor. "I know sorry isn't enough. It will never be enough. But I want you to know that modern teach our children about New Haven. We teach them what happens when you forget that other beings have value. We teach them that humanity showed us both their greatest kindness and their greatest wrath. And we teach them to never, ever forget which one we should have chosen to receive." After the official ceremony ended, people walked through the museum. The teacher guided her students through the galleries. They were young, from 6 different species. They held hands as they walked, looking at the exhibits with wide eyes. "Teacher," a small boy asked, "why did the humans help everyone before the war?" "Because it was the right thing to do," said. "But why did they fight the war?" "Because that was also the right thing to do. Sometimes being good means helping. Sometimes being good means protecting." A human girl in the group raised her hand. "My mom says that the war was sad but necessary. What does that mean?" Knelt down to the girl's level. "It means that sometimes, even when you try your hardest to be peaceful, someone will hurt you. And when that happens, you have to be strong enough to stop them. Not because you want to hurt them back, but because you need to protect other people from being hurt." The children nodded, trying to understand. They stopped in front of the weapon behind the glass. The children stared at it in silence. "That thing killed stars," a child whispered. "Yes," said, "and humanity has never used one since. They keep it here to remember, to remind everyone, including themselves, of the cost of war." In another part of the museum, there was a special room called the Children's Garden. It was filled with flowers and trees. On the walls were the names and pictures of all 80,000 children who died in the attack. Every species, every age, every face. Governor stood in this room alone. He did this every year. He found his daughter's picture and just stood there, remembering. "Hi," he said softly. "I brought you flowers again. Your favorite ones, the blue ones you always liked." He placed the flowers beneath her picture. "The galaxy is different now, sweetheart. It's safer. Kids like you can grow up without being afraid. That's something, isn't it?" Tears ran down his old face. "I miss you every day. I miss watching you grow up. I miss your laugh. I miss everything we didn't get to do together." He stood there for a long time, just looking at his daughter's young face in the picture. She would never grow old. She would be 9 years old forever. "I hope I made you proud," he whispered. "I hope you understand why we did what we did." In the evening, there was a final ceremony. Every light in the city was turned off for 5 minutes. 50,000 candles were lit instead. One for every person who died, proportionally represented. The city glowed softly in the darkness. People from across the galaxy stood together in silence. Humans, even reformed, all of them remembering. When the 5 minutes ended, the lights came back on slowly, but the candles stayed lit. People held them as they walked away, taking the light with them. On a platform above the plaza, a statue had been erected after the war. It showed Admiral in his later years. The inscription read, "He planted gardens across the stars. He burned worlds to protect them. He never apologized for either." Beside statue was one of Ambassador. She was shown with her hands extended in peace. Her inscription read, "She believed in diplomacy until diplomacy failed. She believed in justice even when justice was hard. She taught us that kindness without strength is just weakness, but strength without kindness is just cruelty." The galaxy had learned the lesson. After the war, major reforms swept through the Galactic Council. Slavery was banned completely, with real enforcement. Species that exploited others faced real consequences. The Council could no longer hide behind procedure when people were suffering. Humanity had achieved this not by being the strongest but by being willing to do both good and terrible things when necessary. They had shown the galaxy two faces, the gardener and the reaper, and they had taught everyone else that you didn't get to choose which face you saw. Your own actions made that choice. As night fell on New Haven, walked home with her students. They were still processing everything they had learned. "Teacher," the human girl asked, "do you think there will ever be another war?" Thought carefully before answering. "Maybe, I hope not. But humans taught the galaxy something important. They taught us that peace isn't just the absence of war. Peace requires justice. It requires protecting the innocent. It requires standing up to evil even when it's expensive or difficult." "And if someone attacks innocent people again?" the boy asked. "Then the galaxy will respond," said. "Not just humans anymore, all of us, because we all learned the lesson. A gift from humans lasts forever, but their wrath can destroy worlds. Every species that wants peace now knows they have to choose justice too." She looked up at the stars. And somewhere out there in the dark, those three dead stars remain as a reminder that some lines should never be crossed, that some evils will not be tolerated, that kindness has limits, and those limits are marked by the graves of innocence. The children walked quietly, thinking about this. Behind them, the museum stood illuminated against the night sky. Inside, the two galleries waited, the garden and the reaper, creation and destruction, mercy and justice, two sides of the same coin. Humanity had shown the galaxy both, and the galaxy was better for it, even though the lesson had been written in blood and fire. The memorial candles flickered throughout the city, each one a small light against the darkness, each one a reminder that individual lives mattered, that they would be remembered, that they would be avenged if necessary. In the years to come, no species would dare attack civilians the way they had. The memory of three dying stars was too strong. The knowledge of what humanity could do, what they would do if pushed too far, kept the peace better than any treaty. But humanity didn't celebrate this. They remembered what they had lost. They remembered Doctor's gentle smile. They remembered Governor's daughter holding hands with her friend. They remembered all 300,000 people who died for no reason except greed and cruelty. And they made sure the galaxy never forgot either. A gift from humans lasts forever, but their wrath can destroy worlds. The choice had always been which one you deserve to receive.